Welcome everyone to our class in Sefer Gayom, where, as usual, always give a little bit of an overview just to get us located. We said that Sefer Gayom is broken into three parts. The first, he tells us about concepts, where they come from, the different types, and their different levels. And we're in the middle section called the chelke, or divisions of Higayon, where he's going to talk about terms, statements, and syllogisms. And then the last part, he'll tell us how to apply the book, the order of using this book in order to do any type of study. So we're in the middle section, and the first part of the middle section is about terms. Let's see if I can get that chart there. Whoops. Here we go. In the terms, he said there's 21 terms that are always used in logic. Siba and Suba, of course, and result, no Siba. These are very important things to, again, know consciously, so that when you're analyzing a piece, you can clearly understand what you're doing, and when you're presenting it also, you can also present it in the most clear manner. Of course, it would help if the people who you were talking to also understood these basic terms, so they may require a little bit of explanation. But again, all these things the Ramchal tells us we do naturally, but what he's done is raised our consciousness and organized these terms so that we can use it as a tool instead of just using fuzzy thinking or inventing our own words. So he has invented a very clear system and a vocabulary to speak about, so that when we talk to each other, we can, as I said, understand things more clearly and also communicate better. So we're really at the end of these 21 terms. Suganindi explained before, we'll talk about different types of proof. But here, we're in a very important part here. And this is what I'd like to go over slowly and try to analyze it carefully, because we use this all the time. He has the subject of terms of nerachim, things which are similar, bilti shavim, things which are dissimilar. And dissimilar had two parts. They're either not equal, bilti shavim, or they're actually opposites. So that'll be a question of the degree. So I said all the mamatzinos that we use come from comparisons, the kalchomers. And then we have things that are different, and the question is that difference a significant difference? And then, of course, we have opposites. Now, opposites are very important because we said, for instance, syllogisms, if you want to prove something true and something's and the case that you're talking about, it has an opposite, a real opposite. So if you prove the opposite false, then indirectly you prove what you're saying true. Okay, so this is such an important part that I like to go over it carefully and not just say the terms and slide over it, but try to really analyze what's being said carefully and see if then we can apply it to our learning a little bit. So this is going to be a little bit of experimental class. I'm going to go over what we did, but I want to do that because then it comes from just an abstract set of terms which go in one ear and not the other to a usable tool. Okay, let's see. Let's go over here. Let's do a little review on the nerachim and see if we can clarify nerachim. Okay, in the background there we have our little chart. Okay, so and then we'll go through the book and then we'll put it together, and we'll have to always think about what we're doing. So here's what we did last time, the nerachim. That means things which are similar to each other. I'm going to try to make that chart a little bit better for us and get this thing out of here so we can look at the Sefer and the chart at the same time. Okay, so he said that things are either going to be similar to each other or they're going to be dissimilar to each other. And dissimilar means they'll be different or opposite. That's basically these few chapters. in the dissimilar parts, he talks about sug, min, and mikrim, and whether things are equal or comparable. So let's look at that again so we can get a better idea of what these terms are trying to express to us. So, mirachim mistamim o besug o bemin o bemikrim. When we say that things are similar, so one way that we say things are similar is because they are mining in a sug or ishim in a min. That's what he says here. Now, mikra means that there's certain qualities that the two things have. They may not be in the same category. Like, for instance, he's going to say that man and grass are fragile items. Okay, so they're not in the same category. Maybe they're in a very large category of creations, but they really don't share very much in common, but they both do share a certain mikra that they are weak. Or he says that mishpat and chesed are both to be desired. So mishpat and chesed are really opposites almost, din and chesed, but they do have a certain mikra that makes them equal, and that's that the person who is a shlei das, a person who is a whole person should love them equally. So they're almost opposites, but they do share a certain quality without a person wants to be an Sholim. So that's how things are similar. So let's look at that a little better. He says, Merachim mistam besug of the min of the mikrim, besug mistam in the min beishim. But let's go with those two first parts. So what I did was I have my Mishnayos here, you see, and there's our lovely Mishnayos, over comma.
Okay.
So squeezing out a lot of that. Okay, so when we say that there's Arba Avos Nezik and the Shor, the Bor, Mav, and the Hever, so the Shor, the Mav, and the Hever are Minei Nezikin, okay, correct?
Right.
So they are comparable to each other because they're meaning their types of Nezikin. Later on, in the next Mishnah, we say that there's Chamisha Tamim, the Chamisha Muadim. There's 5 types of Tamim and 5 types of Muadim. Now, so the Behema Enim Muedis, these are the Tamim, not to Ligach, Ligof, Lishoch, Lirvos, Libot. When we talk about the Tamim, it's the gorers and the pushers and the biters and the squatters and the kickers. Okay, now that's interesting because those are also probably a little categorical, right? Because even though we said they're the gorers, but that's a whole category because I guess you can gore with a horn and maybe I don't know what else you'd gore with.
Well, if you're going to gore with Karen, it says over there Karen is always intentional, kavanah lahazik.
Right.
So that
all of these. Yeah,
all these are kavanah lahazik. Okay.
Yeah. These are all have that quality that they're kavanah lahazik. When he not just brushes by an animal, but like he shoves an animal over the cliff, or he bites an animal. Okay, so they are. My only problem is, are they? Would you call these categorical yet, or would you call these ishim? I'll show you real ishim. You see, the real ishim are over here, for instance. The zev, the ari, the dove, the nama, the bartless, and the nachash are muadim. Now those are really particulars, right? There's no
right
doubt about that. Okay, so the only question is this middle zone, the gores and the pushers, because in pushers you have a lot of different types of pushers. Let's say, different animals can exhibit that, to shove other animals around. So my only question was whether that's a min or a niche. But whatever it is, the point here is that we have things which are similar because they're in the same category. Okay, now the question is, are they prots in the category, or are they klalim, minim of the category, or sugim, which just really means how big of a category they are. Okay, but whatever it is, they're different items, but they're together because they share a certain quality. In this case, if we want to know their muad, there's really the zev and the ari and the dove are physically quite different, but they do share a certain quality, and we put them together because of the mikra, of the fact that they're misukan, they're dangerous, and therefore they're muad. You don't have to go through, there's no question about it, as I showed the first time, because the last thing we'll discuss about in terms is muad. We can testify that this is a dangerous animal. With an ox, maybe, it's a tom. We don't know whether it's definitely dangerous, clear and present danger, right? So it has to go through the stage of being a tom before it gets to be a muad from the word proved, testimony, edus. Okay. So what I'm trying to bring here out is when he says the first part he says is what he calls ne'aruchim. And the ne'aruchim, the first concept he says, are things that are together in the same sug, min, or sug or min. And he says when they're together in the same sug, the mistamim, the minim are ne'aruchim one to the other. Okay? So when we said that the shore, the bull, mav, and the heather, those are minim of nizikin, correct? Those are not ishim because each one of them represents the category.
Right.
But they're minim in the sug of nizikin. And then you have these ishim, so definitely the bardalus and then nachash and the dove, those are particulars that are in the category of muad. Okay. Now the third type, he says, is called mikrim. They're not similar because they are in the same class. They're similar because they share a certain aspect. So let's see how he defines that. It's mi sheyesh lahem mahuz echad. They have a certain similar quality, o kamas echad, or a certain amount. And he says that's divided into the shavim and domim, okay? So now the question is like this. This was the question that we had. My Chaver Rev Sakdin made this as two separate qualities, and he said you're shavim and domim. My question was whether these are really subcategories of mikrin, or whether they apply to all of them. It's not that clear in the text, okay?
All right.
He says over here, he says, the mikrim, when it comes to a mikra, mishiesh lahem maus echad or kamas echad. Something that has the same essential quality, or shares a certain amount. And it's divided into things which are equivalent, shavim, okay, and things which are comparable. So what's the difference between something which is shaveh and comparable? Let's go through that. He says the shavim, the shavim hain shemishtabim bekamos echasam. They're equal in the amount of a certain quality. See, that's why I wanted to say that this really should be a subcategory of mikra. Like
that's what I would have thought from reading this, that shavim and daimim are both subcategories of mikrim.
Yes, I agree. I really wanted to put it that way.
Just from, I'm not, just from learning his style a little bit, it seems that's the way it would go.
Right. So that's really where I wanted to put it. The problem I understand is that really when you put minim together, they also share it. I mean, why is the dove and the bartless and the nachash? Then it's because they share certain quality together, that they're sukan, for instance. So there's an overlap between saying that something is a min of a sod or an ish of a min, and whether they share a certain mikra. Okay, but that we spoke about when we talked about sod and min. In other words, how do you make classes of things?
Right.
You know? Okay, so we have to think about that more deeply.
Yeah, because classes, well, right, if you want, classes are made up, when you say something is an animal, it's because it has certain qualities that you understand right away that it belongs to the class of animal, right? You're going to look at a lion, a tiger, you know it's an animal. You look at a car, you know it's not an animal. But on the other hand, what we're talking about over here with mikrim is that they have qualities that are similar, but yet we understand that those qualities allow them to remain in separate classes.
I agree with you, yeah.
Derech mashal, and what's his mashal? Right, from his mashal, it's obvious, right? We went through this last week. We spent some time on this.
Right.
And never kol kach neva hachesed k'may hamishpat. Right. So you're saying that chesed is ne'ahav, mishpat is ne'ahav. So they share a certain quality, a certain attribute that. But that attribute does not relate them and put them into the same class, right? Animals move and cars move. You're not going to put them in the same class of animal just because cars move. You may put them into a new class called things that move, but that's a much broader class because it includes Baalei Chai, includes things that are not Baalei Chai. I mean, if you wanted to create a class of things that people like to do, you could then call it Chesed and Mishpat, belong to that class.
Right, because now you're getting into the overlap.
Right.
But simply, the point here is not to create a class between Chesed and Mishpat.
Right.
It's just to show that they share a certain quality, which may be important to a person who's a Shleimei Das.
Right.
Right.
Now, the only thing is he does not explain. What does he explain daimim?
Oh, he's going to explain it in 1 second.
Oh, there he explains it over there. We'll have to see that, and then then we can really understand whether it's not.
Right. And it's okay. So he says like this: when it comes to shavin, hemishtabin bekamas efusam. They share a certain mikra equally. Okay, but they, as you said, and I guess I understand. They're not a min in a class. They have a certain mikra that they share, and they have a kamas of that mikra that they share. So he says, Im nema kol kach neva chesed kamo mishpat. You should love chesed as much as mishpat. So that's what he says. הכוונה בזה שכל טעם יש בחסד שימיה כמו במשפט, ונמצא החסד והמשפט שווים בכמה זה חוסם. דהיינו יוס נהב. So in that particular mikra of being desired, they're equal. Okay? So we won't go through the klawim. Okay. Now what are the domim? Okay. The domim הם דומים באיכוס או בפעולה ובהפל. Now, here I understand it's more of a metaphor. הדומים הוא פשוט ומרכב. Let's get the example. The pashut was ben shnayim, and the markav is ben arba. Okay, it's only a question of how do you make the similarity. Derech mashal, the pashut. Ha'adam v'ha'esav domim v'chulsha. Ve'en kan ela shnei nosim. So man and grass are fragile items. So what's the difference between saying, okay, the next one we understand, the sar ba'amo v'chol
right, they were comparing four things, because we're comparing the sar and his am to the chayvel and his aniyah, so we're comparing am to aniyah and sar to chayvel.
So that's more of a mushal, right? In other words, they really have nothing to do with each other except that they're mushal on things, but the whole context is totally different.
Right.
But they do have a certain quality that if I wanted to explain one with the other, I would, in other words, if I wanted to explain to you what the Tsar does, I could make an analogy between him and the captain of the ship. But they're definitely not the same min, right? And they don't really have, they do have the same ethos in the sense of the ability to lead, but really they're not similar at all. They're really comparable. I'm repeating the words he's saying just to get the idea better, right? But what do I mean? When you say that the Shlei Yadah should love Mishpat and Chesed, the love is the same that you should have for both. When you say that the ship captain is like the Tsar, or the Tsar is like ship, whichever way you want to go, or actually you want to explain what the Tsar does. So there you're using a mushal. They're really, the whole context and the way they do things is totally different. There's only similarity that they guide someone, but it's really a different context. Are you with me with that? I'm struggling to really define the difference.
Yeah, because because you have to be medayik in his words that the daima in echos, and before he called it the kamos of the echusam. So over here, the comparison, if you go back to the grass one, adam v'esav adayim b'chosha. I mean, there really is no comparison between the weakness of a man and the weakness of a grass. I mean, calling a grass weak and calling a man weak are really uncomparable, except that the fact that you could use the same word to describe a certain deficiency in man. He's weak with respect to something. Grass is weak to respect to another thing, but they both and you can both call them weak. So really, they're two totally different concepts, but you could compare them using the same word of chosha. Whereas before, when we had the example of ava, it's the same ava. Of if I enjoy doing mishpat, I may enjoy doing chesed also. It's the same exact behavior that I'll go out and try to do an hour's worth of mishpat a day and an hour's worth of chesed a day because I enjoy making sure that the world is run well from a mishpat point of view and from a chesed point of view. It's the same behavior, so it's much more comparable.
And he wants to say it's actually equivalent.
It's
the love is equivalent.
The love, right?
You can love your children, you can love your wife. I don't know if it's equivalent or not equivalent, but it's the same love.
No, but you could say somebody loves his wife as much as he loves his children, or you could say somebody loves his work as much as he loves his wife, and the behavior is the same because he's spending time at work and he's involved in it, and he's involved in spending time with his wife and so on. But the weakness of grass and weakness of a person, it's not the same weakness, because the weakness of a person may be because his personality is fragile because you can insult him with words, and grass is weak because you step on it, it bends. One thing has nothing to do with the other, except that you want to describe a concept of something that has a lack of strength. You could use the word weakness, and each then has to be described in its own context of the own topic.
Okay, now let's go a little further and see how that works out. Okay, because he says here.
The only thing we didn't explain is he says two things in domim. They're either domim in echos,
right,
or in pe'ula v'hefel. I guess that must be his two examples. His echos must be the chulsha example, and pe'ula v'hefel must be the sar and the chovel example, because the sar does a pe'ula to his am, and a chovel does a pe'ula to his aniyah. So those are the different that they're comparable in pe'ula, that they both do a concept of guiding. Again, it's not the same guidance. When a guy is standing there, holding the wheel of the ship, it's not really comparable at all to somebody who is standing in the White House or in the Knesset, running the nation.
Right. So that's why it's more of an analogy
Right. So that's what it's called, domim.
A real equivalent.
Right.
Right. Okay. So now that's great. Let's go to, now that was domim.
Right. So going back to the
Echos and Pula.
going back to the Miskalkim Lashon V'Domim. After we explain this, I would say it certainly belongs only in Mikrim. You cannot say that you can have things that are sug or min that are either shavim or that are either shavim or domim. Not in his examples. Domim certainly not, because domim is just conceptual.
I agree with you. I mean, I personally agree with you. That's why I also, I agree with you. Because we're not really talking about, we're talking about more of a mushal, that's all I can say. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's a mushal, it's not a reality. And when you talk about sug and min, you're talking about a reality.
Right.
That things are together in the same class.
Right.
So I agree with you. I'm going to talk about Reb David with that. I mean, but I really feel that it's also the shot, especially what he writes, and also conceptually, I think it's correct. As we said, the sug and min, although you may decide that a certain segula or nikla put them together, but they really belong in the same class. A class is not a mushal. A class is reality, right? Any class that you make, like the Nezikin. Those are not mashalim. Those are really Yeshua in heaven. All share a certain common quality. They're not a mushal one to the other. They're in reality. They're all Nezikin. Okay, I think that was very good, and I'm glad we had that discussion. Let's now look at the building shoving. Okay, that's the other side. So those are similarities. Also, when you spoke in your word, that's another thing. You made a comparison between writing the Torah and you said it was. What was your comparison then? You were working on your word.
What did I tell you last week? I was making.
I thought about the Muki Yosef or someone.
Oh, the Muki Yosef says. Oh no. So the Muki Yosef says that
one word.
Midas. It's like you makabel Torah misinai. Right. So it says over there, Midas Arachim Omer, that somebody who writes a Sefer Torah, it's as if he was makabel for Torah from Sinai, and then he says further, somebody who writes one letter is as if he wrote the Torah. It's in Muki Yosef in Menachos Daf Lamed Amud Aleph.
So is that a shavim or a domim?
That would be
what are we saying?
That would be that would be more like a diamond.
Because you didn't physically write the whole Torah.
That's right.
Right.
Right. Right.
And what was the first one that you?
If you wrote the whole Torah, it's as if you were makabel from Sinai. It's also a diamond. Because you weren't makabel Torah from Sinai. You may have it's comparable or it's or what he's saying over there, Midas Arachim Omer, is that since you were matriach yourself to go out of your way and write a Torah, you obviously would have been matriach yourself, and you would have come also to be makabel Torah from Har Sinai.
So it's a mashal.
Right, it's a mashal. Midas Arachim, right. So Midas Arachim, what it's really saying is Midas Arachim is finding a zchus for you, and he's advocating on your behalf that you would have gone ahead and showed up at Har Sinai. I mean, it's really a whole question how Midas Rachamim works. How could it be? Because it says that you can't say HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a mevater. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was perfect, and he only works. And if there's such thing as din, if somebody is obligated to get punished, or he's supposed to get a schar or a mitzvah for doing something, if he didn't do it, let's say he's supposed to get punished, how come Midas Rachamim come and erase it? So that one of the Sifsei Chaim says by Yom Neram, he says that it has to do with the Midas Rachamim comes and finds a schus in what you did and changes what you did, that it's not so bad, it really should be a little bit better. So that's why Midas Rachamim, what he was saying, it's as if you showed up at Har Sinai. So it's definitely a diamond because the thing is as if you were there and you weren't there.
And you weren't there.
Right.
Right. Okay, good. This is the type of thing that we have to do in order to make the system of the Ramchal useful.
Right.
And not just go in one ear and out the other. And because it is a useful tool in being precise in what we're saying. But without the application, then it practically means nothing. Okay? So very good. Okay, let's look at the Bilgi Shavim. Okay, so that was the side of things which are either equal or they're comparable domain, which we said is more symbolic or an analogy. Okay, now in learning, by the way, in learning, let's see, because we're going to look at this dissimilar category. This is going to be very interesting because Bilti Shavim, those things were equal, either in a certain aspect or, as we said, as a comparison. Let's look at Bilti Shavim. They're different. Now, being different doesn't mean that they're not similar in a certain aspect, and it also means that they're not opposites. Different is a middle box. It's definitely not equivalent. Okay, so let's look at his Bilti Shavim. Bilti Shavim ham shema sheyesh be'echad eino b'chavero. It's different because some quality that one has, the other one doesn't. Now there's a question of how much different. V'nischalek l'mishunim, they're different. V'hefchim. Okay, if they're mishunim, it doesn't have as, we'll see, it doesn't have as much of the quality, and hefchim means it actually has the opposite quality. Let's go through that. Hamishunim hem hamisparshim echad michavro below hisnagdus chazak. The mishunim, the different ones, are divided one from the other. They separate ways, but not dramatically. They're not polar opposites. Then ischalech and nerachim, you see, just the same word we use. I think you put that up last time. They're nerachim. They can be similar but different. And then there's something called muchlata, which means that they have a certain aspect. We'll see that doesn't exist in one. Like he says, some men are not white, or one man's not black, for instance. Okay, so there's just one little aspect that's totally different, but everything else is the same. So now here we're talking about differences. Okay, and I said differences is not an equivalent, but let's see what he says. The mishunim ham mispar. Okay, now he said it's divided to nerachim and mufla. Now let's go through the nerachim. We're here on the chart. Okay, here's the nerachim and the muchatim. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we have these modern tools to keep our bearings. The Bilti Shavim. Okay, what are the mishunim? Ham hamisparshim echad. Okay, we said that. Now the mishunim have nerachim and muchlatim. What are the nerachim? Ham sheyesh hefresh be'erkam zeh lezeh. There's a difference between their value, one to the other. The nischalek lechalukim and muvdalim. Okay, so here's the mishunim and the nerachim, and they're going to be either chalukim or muvdalim. Now let's see what he says here. Let me see if I can move that up a little or move this down one or the other. Okay, whatever. Okay, good. Okay. Hanerachim hem sheyesh hefresh ba'arkam zelazeh v'nischalek lechalukim u'muvdalim. What are the chalukim? Hem shechalukim b'kamasei chusam v'hem yeterin or b'chosim. So whenever we make a kal v'chomer, it's going to be based that one has more of a quality, or less of a quality, correct? So they're not the same. They're not equal. They're not opposite. But the first type, nerachim, is their greater or lesser one to the other. Okay? So whenever we make a kal v'chomer, we're going to say that they're different. They're definitely Bilti Shavim. They're not equivalent, but they are nerachim. They are similar, but what happens? One is greater or lesser than the other. Okay, isn't that interesting? I mean, I think it's interesting. Okay.
So they're Yiserim or Pchusim. So you have, okay, I'll just go over this again.
Yeah, go over it, please.
Bilti Shavim. Okay, so you have Meshunim and Havchiyim. Okay, that we see up there. And now we're going to be dealing with the Meshunim. Meshunim is divided into Nerachim and Mechlatim. And now we're dealing with the Nerachim, which is either Nechlakim. It's Chalukim and Muvdalim. And now we're just dealing with the Chalukim.
Right.
And see the Yiserim or Pchusim. So he doesn't give examples of each of these.
Yeah. But we understand, okay, he doesn't, I don't think, yes he does. Yeah, here, let's give examples. Okay, so he says they're either Yiserim or Pchusim. Klali ha-Yiserim in the Klalim. Mishi yipol bo ha-yoter yipol ha-pachos derech mashal. Im ha-adon baruch hu bore yesh mi'ayin, so kol shechen yochel l'kayim et ha-yesh. If the Kodesh Baruch Hu can create something from nothing, so certainly he can keep what's there going. That's the difference between a siba moledis and a siba mekayemes, right?
Right.
So if you can do the siba moledis, you certainly can do the mekayemes, because creating something from nothing is fantastic. So making something that is already keeping going is less difficult to do. Okay?
Right.
So, however, they're different. There's a difference between a siba moledis and a siba mekayemes. But they do share that the ability to do one is greater than the other. It's the ability to create something from nothing is greater than to keep something going. Right?
Right.
So they're different. One is a siba moledis, one is a siba mekayemes. But they're nerachim in the sense that if I could do one, then I certainly can do the other. Because, okay.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I was all involved with Rev Tarfon, but I'm not going to get into it. You know, there's this Mishnah, okay, whether in Yeshus and Isaac. I'll tell you briefly. I'm not going to get involved because it's a very interesting and deep point, and it also demonstrates why you have to think about the cases and once you think about them, there's dealing technically with things and then thinking about why they work that way. So there's this whole problem of what do you pay Mishus and Isaac? The Torah doesn't talk about when you're carrying Mishus and Isaac. So Rav Tarfon says you pay Nezek Shalom, and the Chachamim say you pay ch13 Nezek, and they learn it from a Kal V'Chomer. So one says Daya, one says... Okay, I won't get into it, but anyway, it's a very deep point. But the point is, here, when we can create a relationship of more and less, so we're able to do a Kal V'Chomer. Okay, and more or less means that they're nerachim, they are similar, in that one, if one can be done, the other one certainly can be done, but they're not really equivalent, right? The siba moledis is not equal to siba mekayemes, right? When Hashem creates something from nothing, that's a different pula than when he keeps something going, right?
Right.
Yet, if he can do one, he can do the other.
Right.
So on one hand, it's just, you have to think about that, but that's what he says. Okay. All right. Then he talks about all the columns. Okay. And then he spoke about Efshari and don't make a mistake, the things which are possible, the possibility and probability. Okay. Now, let's look at the Muvdalim. Okay, did I skip the Mechlatim?
No, the Mechlatim
here it is, right here. Right here, Muvdalim. Okay, these are greater and lesser. These are Muvdalim. Let's see what Muvdalim are. Muvdalim hem hanerachim. They are nerachim. They're in certain ways similar, but mitparshim zemizeh be'eches ubapula v'hefel. But they're different in their quality or their action or the result. Derech mashal. Inema Mitzrayim eino k'Shechem, or Adam eino k'Chomer. And you picked it up. Remember, the Ramchal, whenever he makes a chiluk, his examples always follow one to the other, the chalukim. Okay, so over here he says things that are muvdalim.
So echos would be the Mitzrayim is not k'Shechem, and the Pe'ula would be Adam eino k'Chomer.
Right.
So echos would be in size. He would say that Mitzrayim is obviously much larger than Shechem. He's comparing them in echos is size, right?
Oh, I think it's the quality.
Or the quality?
Yeah, I think the people in I think, I don't know why, it's a good question. Why do you say Mitzrayim and Shechem? I thought it was a quality, not size.
Oh, okay. You mean in the, like it says that, yeah, because he's referring
Maybe
to...
one is an Agsor and one is not, I don't know.
No, because...
you know the analogy there?
I think the analogy is well, maybe...
I know Mitzrayim is not like Eretz Israel, for instance. One has water from the Nile and one doesn't. That I could that I could have understood.
No, but also the type of land it is. It's supposed to be Eretz Israel is that's Goshen. It compares Goshen. That's Goshen I'm thinking of. Goshen is supposed to be the nicest part of Mitzrayim, but it's not as nice as Eretz Israel. Mm-hmm. I think that's brought down in Rashi in Bereshis somewhere, like in Parshas Vayishav, Miketz around there. But the question is if he's doing the same thing here with Mitzrayim is not like Shechem, and saying that Mitzrayim is not as nice as Shechem, or what does echos mean? Doesn't echos mean echos is quality?
Yes, echos is a quality, a certain quality that they have. That's what I said. So, like, our ability, you want to say something out of the land, it's not like it. I wish I could use an example that we would. Let's get the klali maybe. מה שנופל באחד מהם אינו נופל בחברו בבחינת מה שהוא מובדל ממנו. In that certain aspect, so what happens to one does not happen to the other. So I was thinking here, like when you say that the shore is lo hare kamaba, and the maba is not like the shore. They're muvdal in the echos, right? Because one is, for instance, let's say Shmuel, one is dark and lahazik, it's when it walks, it just naturally kicks over things, and the Shane is hanor lahazik. So they're muvdalim one to the other. They do have a certain quality that they are the same. They're both seeking, right?
Right.
But they're muvdalim in that the aspect that causes the chiyuv is different than the other aspect that causes the chiyuv. So even though they both have a chiyuv of nezek, but they're really muvdal one from the other, and that's why there's arba avos. They're both called avos.
Right.
Okay, so you wouldn't say they're opposites to each other. And you can't say that they're equivalent to each other. But they're not. But there's a difference between them, and that's a significant difference in their echos.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Here, you want to know about Mitzrayim and Shechem?
Yes.
It's a Medrash Rabbah, Bereshis Rabbah, that says like this. It says, oh no, I lost it. Here.
Where did you find that in Google?
No. I have a subscription to the Bar Ilan library, responsive.co.il. So it says, Amar Yehuda le'echav, Ani achav mehem shloisha, v'tolu, and you should take kol echad ve'echad, echad v'le'nishar b'hem ish. Amar le'echav, Yehuda Mitzrayim eina k'Shechem, mata machrav es Mitzrayim, tachrav es kol ha'olam, ba'is hashav le'yachal Yosef le'esapik.
That's in the confrontation. What went on over there?
Right. So it said that The brothers said to Yehuda, if you destroy Mitzrayim, you're going to destroy the whole world, because Mitzrayim is not like Shechem. So this is in Parshas Vayigash. So I guess it's...
Yeah, wait, Yosef said to it, or who's talking there?
So
Yosef
this is...
or Yehuda? They're confronting Yosef and Yehuda.
Yeah,
right?
so, okay, it says like this. Amar Yehuda, let's go back a little bit. Amar Yehuda...
So Yehuda says what?
Yehuda said to Naphtali, Lech ur'ei kam shvakim Mitzrayim.
Oh.
Kafatz v'chazer, Amar lai shneim asa. So Naphtali came back and said there are 12 streets. Amar Yehuda le'echav, ani achriv mehem shleisha. I'm going to destroy 3 streets. V'talu kol echad ve'echad, echad. And I guess talu, I don't know what the word talu, it's taf lamed vav. I mean tes lamed vav. V'talu, it sounds like he's saying that each of you take 1 street. There are 12 streets, I'll take 3, and each of you take 1, and there won't be anybody left in Mitzrayim. Amar lei echav, so his brother said back to him, Yehuda, Mitzrayim eina keshchem, emata machrev es Mitzrayim, tachrev es kol ha'olam. If you destroy Mitzrayim, you're going to destroy the whole world. At that time, and then Yosef wasn't able to hold back anymore.
Crazy. What's Peshat? I don't understand.
Kivan shara Yosef sheheskima daitam lachrev es Mitzrayim, Amar Yosef bliba mutav she'isvado lahem v'al yachrivu es Mitzrayim, Amar lahem Yosef, Lo kach amartim she'achav shel zameis, ani yakrenu v'yovayes lechem. So then Yosef said, okay, he said, they're going to destroy the whole Mitzrayim, I better tell them. So he said, okay, it's not like I said that he's dead, he's really alive, I'm going to call him and he'll come out.
Yeah, but what does it mean that Shem is not like, that Mitzrayim will destroy the whole world?
I guess because it was it's like it was the central civilization of society at that time.
I mean, what was the message? I don't get the message.
The brothers...
He said, look, let's wipe them all out. Right?
Let's wipe them all out. And the brothers said, no, Mitzrayim is not like Shechem. We went and we destroyed Shechem. That was okay. We had a reason for that. And that was fine. But if you destroy Mitzrayim, you're going to destroy the world, so it's not so fine.
Well, we go down with the ship, something like that? So what does that mean, destroy the whole world? Okay, I don't understand Peshat. We have to get a little...
So I'll have to... Oh, I don't have it. Oh, do I have it? It came out. Artscroll came out. Artscroll came out with a Bereshis Rabbon in English with very nice.
You're kidding.
They did a beautiful job.
I know, they're great.
They did a beautiful job, and then it's also Medrash Tanchuma, so they have it brought down twice from Medrash Rabbon and Medrash Tanchuma, but it's the same thing. And it's the same thing. The Tanchuma and the... I'll have to look it up. It's in Siman Hey. But I guess that's what he's referring to. I mean, it's logical that that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, everything is an illusion, right? It's alluding to something. So where did you say that was? That's Midrash Rabbah?
I'll tell you where it is. So it's either it's in Medrash Bereshis Rabbah, Parshas Vayigash, Parshas Tzadi Gimel, or in Medrash Tanchuma, Parshas Vayigash Siman Hey.
Okay. So we just have to look up the analogy.
Right.
But okay. But they moved on, they're saying. Whatever. We were able to get away with it somehow. That was a little place we can keep on living.
Right.
But if we get rid of Mitzrayim, the whole civilization, just say, collapses, there won't be any commerce,
right.
Everything, we won't be able to survive anymore.
Right.
But they could do it, but it just, like, we would go down with the ship.
Right.
Okay. So those are muvdalim.
Right.
Okay. That's not a question of more or less, is it? What's the difference between the more and less and the muvdalim? It means they have different qualities.
Right.
They are similar that we destroyed both of them, but they have a significant difference that
your echos is different. They have different qualities because one is a metropolis and one is not.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now I got curious. Let's see if I can find Adam Ein Kachoma. Is that just his own mashal, or that's also coming from somewhere? No results. Okay.
No, that's his own. I think that's his own. Okay. Okay. Well, that's the question of the Pula. So when we said, was I correct when I said Lo Hari Shor Kahari Amada?
Yeah.
Okay. So there we're saying that there's a certain aspect that they're muvdalim, right? And once there's a muvdalim, so then we have nafkamis and din, right? We wouldn't be able to learn from the other. One is an olahazik, one's kavan lahazik, one's dark and lahazik, and that dark derech elucha, it destroys things. It's just it's derech to do things by walking, one's not. So those are muvdalim, okay? They're not opposites, they're muvdal one from the other. Since they're muvdal, so then either we won't destroy Shechem and we won't destroy Mitzrayim like Shechem, or they'll have different halachas. Or we couldn't learn one from the other. Because
Right.
even though they are both Nezikin, that's exactly what the Mishnah is talking about, they're both Minei Nezikin. The question is, why do you need four avos? Let's learn one from the other. The answer is they're moved on it. If they were Shavim, Be'echusam, if they were really Shavim Be'echusam, for instance, and they are in a certain way because they're dark and lahazik, right? But if the only quality they had was that they were Shavim Be'echusam, dark and lahazik, then we could learn one from the other. But since there's a very significant factor that they're moved out one from the other, they're different, therefore not greater and lesser, but different, so then I couldn't learn one from the other.
Right. Right. No, you're right. Definitely moved on.
Yeah, and then the Gemara later on is going to say, wait a minute, if I have bor and one other, I could make a kal v'chomer, because the muvdalim aspects would fall away, and then I would say, wait a minute, bor is inanimate, doesn't move, right? It's just passive. So certainly all the active ones should be chayiv. Okay, that's going to be a whole problem over there with our Mishnah. Also says Yad Yotor Yadi. Okay, it's a whole world. But okay, in our Lashon now we have to make these distinctions between things which are narochin in the concept of more or less, and we'll have our rules for handling more or less, and things which are muvdalim, which, since they are different in that aspect, so then we would not be able to handle, we would not be able to learn one from the other. So this has a very important impact in our ability to learn. And okay,
Well, how do you know that Shor and Mav are not muchlat? That they're not different in a way that's muchlat, which we didn't go into yet, I guess.
Yeah, because oh, that's interesting. Well, because one aspect they're different. No,
right.
Really.
In other words, a shar is with a Karen.
Well, we'll see the muchlat.
So
let's go to muchlat, and I'll show you the difference. And he'll show us the difference. Okay. Let's look at the muchlatim. The muchlatim hem masha nishlal mi'eze nosei prati below erech. What does that mean? It's something that's not in one of the particulars. What does it mean below erech? We'll see.
Well, that's more than erachin.
But why below erech? We'll see. Eino, eza adam eino lava. So really, all the man has many similarities. There's only one little prop that makes them different. Whereas the Mava and the Shor, it's not that oh, look, that's also, you see, it's very interesting what you say, because the Gemara is done how to make the difference. You say that Karen, for instance, has Kavana, and Mava doesn't have Kavana. But again, those are not really, that's a very interesting question. We have to think about that. Because they're really not similar at all. All men are very similar. There's just one difference. I mean, like I say, red-haired men and it's just one little practice that's different from one to the other. But when you say Mava and Shor, they're quite radically different, and there's only similarities and differences. It's not like they're really both in the same category, even though we put them together, have Nezik, and they're having to pay. But really, they're pretty different one from the other. You don't think they have similarities and differences that they share, But when you say that one man has red hair, like certain men have red hair, right? So that's just one little part in something that's very, very normal. It's just totally not there in one man, but it doesn't make him really. Okay, so what do you think? I'm just throwing it out to you.
So
You said that maybe the shor lemava mukhlat because
no, then well, they're not because well, what he's saying is, I mean, I don't understand this. So Eza Adam Einay Lavan. So he's saying which person is not.
No, some men are not white.
So why? So why that's a mukhlat if they're not white?
The men, there's a certain group of men that don't have the category of being white, black people.
Okay, so that's why they're mukhlat. They're different in a way that's mukhlat from a white man.
No, not radically. He says like this: mukhlat ham ma shenishlau min ezid nosei prati below erech. What does that mean? It's something that's not in a particular subject, but it doesn't have a value. How do we translate that?
I don't know.
Let's see.
You have the English one?
Okay.
I have the English one somewhere. Do I? No, I don't have the English one. I have the English one on Derech Tunis, not on. I never didn't buy the one on Sefer Yigayin.
Okay. Let me see how we translate that. Let's actually.
Mashanishlam and Ezen Nosei. It's lacking from a particular Nosei Prati below Erech. Derech Mashal Eza. החלק בין הבדל המוחלטים הוא שהמוחלטים אינם נערכים כלל אחד מהשני ואין להם אפילו שלילת דמיון למה שמובדל באיזה מקרה ששניהם. He says here, I have the Hebrew Derech Sefer Haga with on the bottom. He says,
with his notes.
He says, "Achiluk bein hamuvdalim v'hamochlatim, hu shamochlatim einam ne'erachim klal echem masheni," which is what I thought it would meant, that the mukhlat has no value or no ne'erachim, they're not related at all, no comparison. Ve'ein lahem afilu shlilas dimyon loymar shemuvdalim be'ezeh mikra shneim. And they don't have even a shlilas dimyon. What's shlilas dimyon? To say that they're muvdal in some mikra that's shaykh in both of them.
I understand what he says. You want to say lo shaykh.
So there's no comparison at all. In other words, this is black, that's white. There's no comparison.
It means it's not shaykh one to the other.
Right.
That's what he means. That's how we're building this one. It's not shaykh cloud. Not like it's more or less.
Right.
Right? But just not shaykh.
Right. So if you go back to Mudalam, right? If you go back to the examples of Mudalam, Mitzrayim is not like Shechem. In other words, Shechem is a small city, and Mitzrayim is a large city. So, or an Adam is not like a Choma because an Adam is strong, but he's movable, whereas a Choma is not movable at all. Whereas over here, he's saying that you have black, you have white, some different things.
Right. That means that there's really exactly. It's just missing that it's missing that quality completely.
Right.
It doesn't have that quality completely.
Right.
Okay. The Seder.
So getting back to the Shar and the Bam and the Hever, so we're really what we're comparing when we're saying the Shar is not like the Mava, and we say that Shar is Karen, we're really talking about a detail within the greater category of Shar. So you can't. So we're not really comparing the damage of a horn to the damage of a tooth. We're comparing the damage that a Shar does with its horn to the damage that a Shar does with its tooth. So therefore, it would not be a mukhlat. It would be more of a muvdal because it's still doing damage. It's just how does it do the damage?
Yeah. That's why we can't learn one from the other, right? But
right. Well, if it was mukhlat, you would not be able to learn one from the other either. The question is,
right.
If it was mukhlat, then you would not be able to use it in a kal v'chaimer later on. You would not be able to say that you can't learn this from this, you can't learn that from that. But if you take two together, you can learn the third one out. If they're mukhlat, I don't see how you would be able to do that.
Right.
But if it's muvdal, you could take two together, because then you could already do comparisons because there's just more or less. Well, that's not true really. Chalukim is you say on Chus and muvdal.
Let's put our thinking caps on this, okay?
Yeah.
I want to go through the Gemaras a little and try to use these terms and to get the most solidified, okay? It's worthwhile taking the time because this is, as I said, this idea of comparison and difference is all over the place. I mean, you can't go from, the Torah talks about pratim, and we're constantly extending it. We're extending it through comparison, and we're saying, no, that comparison is not a significant comparison. Okay, so this is a very, very critical part. I don't want to just slip by it generally. Okay, let's stop here.
Okay.
And let's go on to Dr. Gemara, which is...
It's been a while.
Next, right. Okay. Okay, let me close this. We can save this in there.